Hello, everyone. Welcome to Hoistory on Air, Day 2. We got stuff to talk about today. We're not going to talk about how been fighting to get this live stream up and going. Uh, anyways, stupid politicians and political operatives. We've had some news in the past couple weeks. Just over a week ago, Politico here ran a story on leaked text messages from young Republicans groups. And apparently, these guys in the groups range in age from like early 20s to 30s. So, not really young people. It's not teenagers. They said some odious things. Shouldn't have to get too much into this stuff that's racist, sexist. It's distasteful. Okay. Roundly condemned quickly by just about every Republican out there. You had some defenders on some sites saying, well, we shouldn't disarm our people when, Democrats do the same thing. Only worse, but they don't get, BS for it. Well, maybe, but I'd argue you don't get down into the gutter with the pig because the pig likes it. So that ran around the internet. The people on the call or in this group chat, most of them are, staff, people you'd never heard of. The only one who was a real politician is this Samuel Douglas. He was a state senator from Vermont. Okay. He shouldn't have been, he didn't make any of the hateful or vile statements, really. I mean, it's not, the only thing that kind of tagged on him was there's a very, some guy said in a chat, replied to Walker's remark about a very obese Indian woman, saying the woman was not Indian, she just didn't bathe often. I've had worse said about me, and I do bathe regularly. This one, this, I didn't want to do that. Let's go back. His wife, not a particularly great person either. Hey, there's somebody for everyone. So he has gone and resigned. So he's quitting. Good. That's as it should be. This is what we should expect from politicians. This is what we should expect from, just people in public life. I think this guy's biggest mistake was just being in the chat. There's situations in life where you're best off just leaving the room. If something bad's happening, if people are, doing stupid things, don't hang around them. This is advice I'd give, kids or teenagers or whatnot. You save yourself a lot of angst and potential problems like this. I mean, anyways, I'm going to skip ahead a little bit. Charles C.W. Cook, National Review. It just isn't that difficult to say those GOP Groyper texts are gross, and I don't want those people in my party. Jay Jones shouldn't be Attorney General with those views. Plattner had a Nazi tattoo and said awful things online, and that's bad and disqualifying. You can just type it. You can just say it. You can just do it. Let's jump to Plattner, because, I'm not sure how many of you have heard this, but this guy here is Graham Plattner. And he has this to say, I am not a secret Nazi. Well, what are we talking about here? Well, what we're talking about is this idiot got a tattoo when he was in the Marines serving in Europe, apparently Czechoslovakia or something, right, somewhere in Europe. That is the Nazi Totenkopf symbol. It's basically it's a certainly stylized skull and crossbones that was worn by the guards at the concentration camps. And the guy's an idiot. The progressive left fell in love with him because he's not the kind of standard establishment Democrat. He's running for the Maine Senate seat currently held by Susan Collins. She is running for re-election. We won't talk about, this gerontocracy that we've got, not, holding on to power until the very end. I mean, Dianne Feinstein was probably one of the worst evidences of that, because she was basically not there. She had her staff running her the last few years of her life. She was not there. It was putting up a, sticking your hand up the back and just running her. So Susan Collins running again. Her main rival is the current governor of Maine, who I can't be bothered to care about. But that woman, governor's a woman, is also standard Democrat nowadays. Now that's pretty far left, but not as far left as Graham here. So Graham here is and I encourage you to read it if you go over to National Review Online. Jeffrey Blehar, Governor's Janet Mills, wrote this nice little piece about it, likening it back to a Republican candidate for Senate some years ago, also in the New England area, who, neither party at times picks the best candidates. This guy is not the best candidate. But he's got this death's head symbol. That's what it means. Big old one tattooed on his chest. A heart with the word mother on it. Maybe that should be good enough for most people, but apparently not. Anyways, so he went on the Pod Save America podcast run by Obama's bus driver. It's amazing how people, it's who you know, and you can just kind of fall up in this world. To go on, I'm not a racist. I'm not a Nazi. I'm not a bad guy. He's a bad guy. He is a bad guy. Okay. His chief of staff, apparently, what's the word here? Plattner said he absolutely would not have gone through life having this on my chest if he knew that the tattoo resembled a Nazi symbol. It doesn't resemble the Nazi symbol. It is the Nazi symbol. Okay. It's not a particularly artistic tattoo, but it is the Nazi symbol. Okay. He admitted he has it after images searched on social media. He claimed he got it in 2007 in Croatia. Okay. Terrifying skull and crossbones. He's not a secret Nazi. But his former campaign director, resigned last week, says the candidate must have known about the image's origins. Maybe he didn't know when he got it, but he got it years ago, and he should have had it covered up because he knows damn well what it means. Okay? If you're a history buff, you recognize this stuff. There's a famous meme, I'm not sure whether it's a British or a Canadian kind of comedy show, sketch comedy show, more Mad TV, less SNL, where these two Nazis are wearing these uniforms with that skull and crossbones on their caps. And one of the guys says, "Are we the baddies?" Like, yes, you're the baddies. This guy, you can't make this stuff up. And now that all this has hit the fan, now he's going to remove the Nazi symbol. Alex, I'll take things you do before running for Senate or any public office, dog catcher, for $1,000. Seriously? You're going to do it now? Now you're going to do it. I can't make this stuff up. Speaking of tattoos you get on your chest while over in Europe or the Middle East, the media made a big deal out of now Secretary of Defense, Secretary of War. Personally, I'm fine for renaming the Department of Defense Department of War. Go for it. That's what it should be doing. You've got Homeland Security. That's something else. Department of War, I like it. Okay, but get Congress to change the dang name. He got a Jerusalem cross tattooed on his chest after visiting Jerusalem. Hegseth the Christian. I'm not going to go deep into whether he's a good Christian or a bad Christian. I don't know. He's a better Christian than Donald Trump, who I don't think is a Christian, but not a high bar to clear. So when that came out, he's got this big Jerusalem cross tattooed on his chest. And the media went ape. This is a dog whistle to white nationalism. The only people who ever hear these dog whistles are the people who want the other side blamed for something. Nobody looks at that cross. Lots of people have that cross tattooed on them somewhere, or they have it as wall art or something. I've been to the Holy Land. Here's here's a memory. It's not in the same league as Plattner's tattoo. It's not anywhere in the same league as Plattner's tattoo. And the media spending a lot of time downplaying Plattner's tattoo because they like him. Drew Holden, who does some stuff over on X, called these up, going back to last year. Pentagon left guard after being reported as possible insider threat due to tattoo. This is the Joe Biden administration. There was a lot of this going on. The Catholics showing up to school board meetings, or Catholics, period. Parents showing up to school board meetings complaining about, trans students raping other kids in the bathroom, which happened in Virginia. But this whole everyone's out to get us. And Trump has a similar paranoia. There's a lot of paranoia about this going on. Okay, but Pete Hegseth, now the nominee to be Defense Secretary, was barred in 2021 from serving in support of Joe Biden's inauguration as a National Guard member after an intelligence officer posted concerns to social media. I'm not sure what to say. Here's another one. Or here's the difference. Compare and contrast. Maine Senate candidate Plattner says he'll remove tattoo recognized as a Nazi symbol. Graham Plattner, a Democratic candidate for U.S. Senate in Maine, says he'll remove the tattoo of an image widely recognized as a Nazi symbol that he got on his chest nearly 20 years ago. He's dangerous. Pete Hegseth is dangerous. He's going to remove the tattoo he got a few years ago because some of you out there don't understand that his views are right, his politics are right. So we should just excuse it. Moving on, briefly in the news. I should have made a ton of money betting that this pardon would happen. Like, summer of 2024, I'm sitting there. He's convicted. He's going to serve some time. There is no way in the world that Joe Biden doesn't spare his son prison. No way it happens. Of course he's going to do that. Were we surprised? But you know whose fault it is? It's Trump's fault. Hunter Biden's blaming Trump. Note, it was Biden's own Department of Justice that went after Hunter. And I had people who were suffering TDS, Trump Derangement Syndrome, telling me that, well, first she had ones telling me that he never pardoned. But the other excuse was that people are seldom prosecuted for lying on the Form 4473. And they're just going after Hunter because he's Biden's son. That, as my father used to tell his high school students, because he was a high school history teacher, and back in those days, it was frowned upon to cuss in class. Nowadays, there's a lot of cussing in class, and not all of it's the students. My father used to call that Bolshevik storytelling, BS, because Bolshevik storytelling sounds right coming out when you start it, and then it's obvious that you have not, in fact, uttered any profanity. I pointed out to one of them, pointing out, you lie on a Form 4473. That's the form you have to fill out each time you buy a firearm from a licensed firearms dealer. There are certain states where you can buy it in a private transaction. You don't have to go through that. But you lie on a Form 4473, that's perjury. You could go to prison. This person pointed out to me, hey, not a lot of people get prosecuted when they lie on a Form 4473. For a party, the Democratic Party, who wants stronger gun laws, and the gun laws we have are never enough, seems an odd flex to make. Nobody gets prosecuted for that. Well, they should be. That's one of the things you should get. That's one of if we're going to have background checks and whatnot. And I think the vast majority of Americans are fine with that system that we currently have, where you can get approved. 80 some odd % of people get approved like in seconds. Not in California, but other free states. That's the kind of thing people can live with. We should be prosecuting more people who lie on Form 4473s. But the other thing I pointed out to this person was they do not, yes, Justice Department, focusing its limited resources, does not prosecute a lot of perjury on 4473 forms. However, when that comes back as you are not eligible to own a firearm because of prior felony conviction or dishonorable discharge from the military, or whatever reason it is, you don't get the gun. They don't give you the gun. Hunter Biden lied about his drug use, and he's not too bright. He writes this memoir, and he talks about when he was using drugs, and he was using drugs at the same time he bought that firearm. And it wasn't marijuana. The Supreme Court's taken a case on, it's going to take a case in this next term about whether past marijuana use, or even current marijuana use maybe, can lose you your right to owning a firearm. Biden wasn't doing marijuana. He was doing crack cocaine. that's probably he's probably not going to. I don't think the Supreme Court's going to extend, drug use, habitual users of drugs other than marijuana that are illegal. I don't think they're going to extend those people the franchise for being able to own or possess a handgun. But Hunter Biden comes out and says, hey, it's all Trump's fault that my father pardoned me. Donald Trump went and changed everything. And I don't think I need to make much of an argument about why it changed everything. If Trump had not won the election, Hunter Biden does not believe his father would have pardoned him. What? If Trump was going to put you in the, to borrow a phrase from, or to borrow an acronym from the movie Office Space, PMTA prison. What was Trump going to do to him? He'd already been convicted. He was going to be sentenced to a year or two, probably, maybe, I don't know, maybe more. What exactly was Trump going to do about it? That horse had already left the barn. Sorry, I'm not buying it. This is just... Hunter Biden also suggests he would have been an easy target for Trump to get revenge against his father if he weren't pardoned. How? It's... They're better than you. They're more special than you. And I don't know. I almost think the opposite. I almost think that Trump may have pardoned him just to show up Biden. You're a fine father, Joe Biden. You had the opportunity not to have your son, go through this whole federal prison thing, and you didn't do it. What kind of a father are you? I'm a great father. Trump, I'm a great father. So I'm going to let your son out because it's not right. Yeah, I don't believe it. This is just, I could have made a lot of money on the betting markets because I was sure that Biden was going to do this. Whether Biden won re-election or Kamala Harris won the election or not, Biden was not going to see his son spend a single day behind bars. Not a single day. Wasn't going to happen. Switching from politicians to academic research. This one hits close to home for me. I spend some time each year substitute teaching. I got a substitute teaching credential. I do not want to do that full time for the simple reason is I don't like it. When I got into substitute teaching, the shock that hit me, the first shock that hit me was that there's lots of students who'd rather not be there. Not just rather not be there. They don't want to do any work. They don't want to listen to the teacher. They want to screw around. When I went through high school, I was in all honors classes. There weren't as many honors classes back then as there are in high schools today. But even if I wasn't in an honors class, the way it worked out was because all the kids who were honors classes kind of took all the honors classes for the most part. So that meant when there was no honors class available for a certain subject, there was still a lot of honors students in the class because we had the same holes in our schedule where we could be plugged into. So the whole, shock of a student saying, no, I'm going to take a nap. I'm not going to turn that in. Yes, it's due at the end of the period. I don't care. I'm not going to do it. And if that's all it was, that I'd probably survive. But the low effort, low interest kids, that I couldn't, I can't deal with that, and if you're going to be a new teacher, you are not teaching the honors classes. And that's probably the only way I'd go into teaching is if I could somehow teach the honors classes. Having said that, I have experience with students in classrooms, and UC and CSU researchers caution against blanket cell phone bans in schools. Blanket cell phone bans in schools works. It is a great thing. We should all support that. Parents should support it. I can't tell you, I get kids, their phone rings in class, they pick it up in the middle of class. They're quiet about it, but it's, yeah, hi mom, yeah. Parents, call the school. Call the front desk at school. If there's a message you need to pass to the kid, call them, have it go through those channels. Don't call your kid in the middle of class, especially if I'm trying to explain something. It's annoying. Don't do it. My parents didn't do it. My parents needed to document. They called the front office. Same thing. Oh, if you're getting pulled out of class for, somebody, a family member has died or something, call the front desk. Tell them to grab the student out of class. That way, don't call the student directly, because they can rename the contact on their phone Mama or something when it's actually their cousin Larry or whatever, and you can't trust it. Call the school. Okay. So they passed a law. There's going to be less cell phone use in schools. They're going to lock them up. I don't know exactly how it's going to work, but I am all for it. I think some of the post-COVID learning loss we've encountered will improve when students aren't playing on their phones all the time. And they are playing on their phones all the time. I go into a class as a sub, and Clash of Clans or something is very popular nowadays. Oh, can I just the bell rang? Can I just finish my my level? No, put it away. We're gonna get started. It's just, and every kid's got a Chromebook. That's the other thing. They're this research. It's like without providing guidance for how to enforce the rules. But they're also saying, hey, the internet and whatnot can be a good, they can learn things there. They can watch, informative videos, not TikTok, there. And, but these kids have Chromebooks. I don't know of a single school, at least in California, where every kid doesn't have a Chromebook or two. I left mine at home. I need a loaner. Go to the library, pick up a loaner. But this is where it gets silly. So this study includes this bit of only California. Strict policies can harm students from marginalized communities who rely on cell phones as their only internet access or assistive technology. Everyone has a Chromebook. Now, there's certain sites they can't visit on the Chromebook or over the school's Wi-Fi. And if they need assistive technology, the school's obligated to provide that in some form. But this idea that, marginalized communities, where I live in the Central Valley, the school that the local high school is 90-something% Hispanic. It's called I think it's called a Title I school, so poor community, okay? Although some of these kids have a lot of expensive jewelry and other stuff. That's just me. Anyways, this is the definition of marginalized community. Everyone has a Chromebook. They do not need their phone. or result in harsher discipline for certain student groups like special education students, students from low-income families, and dun 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 LGBTQ plus students. No, they don't need the cell phones. They don't need them. This is the typical BS that comes, world ends, women and minorities hardest hit. Nowadays, that was 30 years ago. Now it would be women, minorities, and LGBTQ plus people hardest hit. The world ends for everyone. This is. We've already got a system, at least in the public schools. They don't need their phones. They all have Chromebooks. That's all there is to it. I mean, that's. But what do I expect from our higher education here in the state? Last bit of news today. There's been a lawsuit up in Minnesota. My sister-in-law is a TERF, trans-excluding radical feminist. I agree with her on 98% of the stuff. Most stuff she spends her days dealing with on social media and everywhere else is stupid things. Things that 30 years ago we would have called common sense. But now, especially the Democratic Party, has gotten dumb. There's a video going on around on the internet where it's one of these man on the street interview type things that was used to have been done by Jay Leno jaywalking on his talk show. And young lady asked this young man, "How many genders are there?" And he says, 2. She says, "Well, what do you say to the people who think that there are a bunch of 20 plus, a lot of different genders?" And his response to her is that there are 2 genders, male and female, and there are a multitude of mental illnesses. Yes, this is correct. Men can't become women, women can't become men. Effeminate men are still men. Tomboyish women are still women. 20 years ago, it was there was a push to kind of be accepting of that, accepting of that. Hey, there are, not every man has to be a Marlboro man wearing a cowboy hat and a huge belt buckle and smoking a cigarette out in the Wild West. They're all, you can be any kind of man you want to. And now it's, well, you're acting like the stereotypical woman, so you must be a woman. So get the surgery, get the injections, pretend you're something you're not. I'm hoping this ends sooner rather than later. But the stupidity, but we aren't on the downswing of it. We're still on the upswing because there's been a lawsuit. Powerlifting in Minnesota has said, look, you got to be a man. If you're a man, you compete in the men's competition. If you're a woman, you compete in the women's competition. And men don't compete in the women's competition, even if you're now a trans woman, which is short for or long for man. I've seen idiots, mostly in higher education, who have never watched sporting events. I watch a lot of sporting events. My wife doesn't like it. She gets sick and tired of it. I like to watch sports. When I was younger, I liked to play sports. But I'm old and I'm fat, and it's just not a thing anymore. I get the secondary rush off of it. So that's the Minnesota powerlifting organizations rule. Basically, whatever you were born as, that's what you can compete in. They sued over it. And apparently the governor of the state, who's I believe Tony Evers, who's a Democrat, Keith Ellison, state attorney general, also a Democrat, decide they don't like that because that's discrimination. And so this lawsuit went all the way up to Minnesota's Supreme Court. And you want to guess what happened? Here's what happened. Protection of transgender individuals against discrimination based on sexual orientation. Now, I'm not sure where they get this. This is some playing with probably how the law is written, and also in how they argue this stuff, and they try and mix up men role-playing or cosplaying as women as a sexual orientation, which it really isn't. You can separate those two things. There are men who become women who all of a sudden, oh, now I'm a lesbian because I still like women. They're not one and the same. So a policy that expressly prohibits transgender women from competing in the women's division of a powerlifting competition is facially discriminatory and constitutes direct evidence of discrimination. That's right. Okay? That's what the Minnesota Supreme Court says. Having gender-segregated competitive sports is discrimination. And it's discrimination on its face. And you don't even have to do any evidence. And then you have, apparently there's a rule that allows you to, try and rule that if you've got a purpose for doing legitimate business purpose for doing the discrimination, then maybe the discrimination's okay. I don't know how that works. But on the next screen, we have this. There is a genuine dispute of material fact as to whether seeking to ensure competitive fairness in an athletic competition satisfies legitimate business purpose. I got to give the Minnesota Supreme Court this. At least they recognize that there's unfair competition when men compete in women's sports. In the past few years, I have seen online too many cloistered people who either are wedded to this trans agenda or are wedded to the trans agenda and have never seen competitive sports, who think that competitive sports are, well, if she looks like a woman, she should, or if he looks like a woman, he should be able to compete in the women's sports. Men, mediocre men, the bell curves on athletic performance for men and women, not even close. There are some exceptions. Katie Ledecky, she is the best women's swimmer in the world. She finishes some of these distance races 50 meters ahead of her nearest competition. She would not make the final in men's Olympic competition. She wouldn't make the final pool. She'd barely qualify, I think. But I mean, and that says something, that she'd barely qualify. She's an impressive athlete. She is a good athlete, but not Olympic level, not world-class level, if she's competing against men. And if you do this in sports, you're getting rid of women's sports. It's just that easy. Anyone who's played sports past puberty, because there's no big difference before puberty. After puberty, there's a big difference. Uh, you've got famous cases where the U.S. Women's World Cup team, months before they won the World Cup, lost in a scrimmage to an under 15 boys club team. Now, these are very good boys soccer players, but they're 13 and 14 years old. They've got the advantages of puberty, and they wiped the floor with them. Australian women's soccer team, similar sort of thing. You had Venus and Serena Williams saying, "Oh, we can, we're great tennis players. We can beat any man ranked over 200." And this guy who was ranked over 200 and just lost in this tennis tournament, and so had nothing better to do with his time, says, "I'll take you up on that." And he whooped their butts. And then went back, "Oh, we'll take somebody 300 or better." Well, that would have been him too, because once they released new rankings after this, I'm not sure whether it was the U.S. Open or what it was, competition, he lost so early, he was going to jump up in the rankings to, being over 300. And you've seen Serena Williams since then basically saying, "Look, it's different sports. There's no way I can beat a man." Honestly, she probably couldn't beat any college athlete, any male college athlete. Serena Williams could not beat. The greatest women's tennis player of our time could not beat a college tennis player. Maybe not even some high school tennis players. That's just the way it works. Men and women's bodies are different. It's not a fair fight. But that's where we find ourselves today. We'll see whether this gets reversed. There's a lot going on in this space, even here in California, because California says you've got to allow boys who identify as girls to compete in girls' competitions. And the good thing is there are some girls who are saying, "We're not going to play this game." And they're not showing up, and they're not doing that. They're not going to pretend that this is okay, because it's not. And we'll see what happens from there. Thanks for joining me. Thanks for watching this. If anybody ever actually watches this, we'll see what